and I am the co-president of the London GIA Alumni Association. As you know, we're not doing any of our live events for the foreseeable future, but our gem community is still very active and has been very creative in doing online presence. So for us to stay connected and socially integrated, we've decided to post some of these events so that you're not bored at home. So if you keep an eye on Instagram, I'll be posting some of these events. And if you are doing some of these events, please tag us in so that we can share what you're doing. So as a community, we need to stay connected. Don't be bored at home. Stay safe, but don't be bored. So keep an eye on the Instagram and we shall see each other very soon so we can network again and have a little drink. Speak to you soon. And for now, bye-bye.
Welcome, everybody. It's hard to believe that it's already been, what, 4 or 5 months since that video came onto Instagram and since our entire world has changed. Today, we're going to be talking about a little bit about how the world has changed and maybe how it's going to keep on changing around us as we continue to deal with the ever progressing state of everything. Thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Justin K. Prim. I'm going to be the moderator for this evening. And before I invite everybody else in, I just wanted to take a moment to speak a little bit about kind of the intention behind this webinar. And if you guys are here, you probably recognize probably all the faces that you see on screen right now, because everyone in the group tonight has been doing an amazing job at sharing their time, sharing their energy, sharing their creativity, sharing their network, and just pulling together as a community to, as Rui told us, and I'm sure will tell us again tonight, to entertain, to keep us from being bored, and to keep us connected and interested and alive as we, deal with a pandemic situation that is getting better or worse, depending on where you're at. So the intention tonight is to kind of just almost have a bit of a mini celebration to say, wow, this is kind of amazing at how many things have changed in a positive way. And also as a way of us getting together as a group, which is something that we've really never done, and speak about where do we think it's going and where are we personally taking it. And so yeah, that was kind of the intention tonight. So I guess I will just let everyone else tell their stories as well. So if you guys all want to come in, and we will get this party going. Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening from Bangkok. Yeah.
So we have, as someone on Facebook commented on the slide, this is like when the Avengers get together in the movie and they all power up for the first time. So welcome, everybody. Thank you guys so much for being here, for taking the time to do something a little bit out of our normal schedule and to kind of pool our resources to have this conversation. So we have a lot of people here tonight, and we obviously know that we're not going to ramble, because if 8 people ramble, we will ramble forever. But so I'm going to keep us really focused tonight, and we're going to have, I think, a good time. So I'm going to have all of you guys tell us a little bit about what you've been doing and how you got started and what's going on in the world of webinars. But I wanted to kick it off with Rui, because as we know, Rui was sort of the godfather of this moment in time with the webinars. And so I'm curious to Rui, you were the first one. You inspired me for sure. Like as soon as I saw your first one, I was like, oh, I'm on this. I got to do this. So tell us a little bit about what was your mentality, going back into maybe the end of February, the beginning of March. How did you even get the idea of doing a webinar?
Yeah. Hi, Justin. Hi, everyone. Hi, my friends. And first of all, thank you very much for having the opportunity to be with you all today, speaking about webinars, which have connected all of us during so much time. So going to your question, actually, we have here on the room today two people that actually were on the very first that were not public. And one is Marianne Jaén from Madrid. And before this went public, we were chatting on WhatsApp saying we have to do something together as entertainment. So each and everyone, we can prepare a topic and we can share it on Zoom. So today I do something, tomorrow you do something. And then I got started with one on emeralds that it actually went really well. Then, and on conversation with Michelle Ting Wu, that's from AIGS Bangkok, I was saying that, wow, I did this with my Spanish friends and we are doing this. And then she said, you could do that for us as well. And we could be among friends and share knowledge. So we also did one private, closed one for AIGS, for the staff, for friends, etc. And then I thought, why don't I go public? And then that is when I started. I used the very same presentation, one that I presented like 2 or 3 years ago at the Vicenza Oro, and it was the same PowerPoint. And I just had fun, and I forgot that I was on a classroom or on an auditorium. I was home, and I realized that I was in other people's home, friends, and so that's why it went so relaxed. And then one thing went to after the other, and here I am.
Okay, it's very cool. And so I've got, basically the way that I've got this organized tonight, and the way I did on the flyer as well, is I've got it in chronological order. So I've got, just so we can kind of visually see about what we've done here. So Rui, you were telling me you did 48 live sessions. I know at the beginning you were doing, what, 4 a week or something like that?
Yeah, I started like once a week. And then I said, well, I had so many people asking to watch for me to repeat the topic. Then, okay, I'm going to do twice a week with 2 topics. Then all of a sudden, my American friends and Brazilian and Venezuelans and Colombians, they were saying, wow, we also want to watch your things. And we would love you to do something in a time of the day that could be convenient for us. Then all of a sudden I was doing twice a week, twice a day. So 4 times a week, yes. Tuesdays and Fridays.
And that's a lot of work, right? I mean,
but I mean, it was so rewarding because it kept me really busy, and people were so generous and so, I mean, the best human part of ourselves came in, and the people sent me really nice messages, and it was warming my heart every day. And people were saying that, oh, you are doing so much for us. And in my mind, I was saying, and you for being there, you are doing so much for me. So it was a win-win for everyone, I think.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we all agree, because of course, all of us kind of followed in your footsteps. I know the first one, I saw yours in the first week. And then as soon as the webinar ended, I was already like working on a PowerPoint. I was like, I am going to do this next week. And I did. So I think you, as far as I know, at least from my little bit of research I did this week, you were there, yeah, March 18th. And then like really the following week, I did one, which was, I don't remember the first
25 of March.
The lapidary medicine one. So I did a few and then started doing them sort of more formally as a representative of IGT. And so we started, I got really inspired. I think it was around the time, it was that one weekend when Vincent was basically on everybody's show, like 3 or 4 days in a row. It was like AIGS, Rui, me, and maybe there was one more. And then I was like, okay, the format of interviewing people, it was quite interesting. And it's a good way to get your network out there. And I think for you, Rui, at least the ones that I saw, because I didn't see all of yours, but you did a lot of them just by yourself. And to me, this is like a lot of work. I immediately was like, no, I'm going to start interviewing people because it's so much less preparation. And so
can I tell you, not a secret, but I mean, I have been a lecturer for many, many years. So most of those lectures, they were actually taken from courses that I do or lectures that I gave at GEMA, Vicenza Oro, Italian Gemological Institute, and many other places in the world. So I just reviewed the PowerPoint and maybe chose a few new slides and tried to keep it for like 40 to 45 minutes. And that's it. So pretty much not everything, but the majority was already done. So it was not that much actually.
Okay, so that's kind of how it began. And then, so as far as I know, the next one that came in was AIGS and Julia. So Julia, welcome, first of all. Thanks for being here. And,
hello, my pleasure.
And so tell us a little bit about your series and like the format that you were kind of going for.
So really, all of the topics that we did, we were expanding on familiar topics that we all know about, but often just a little bit about, because often gem notes, they don't really go into it. So yeah, really expanding on those topics, focusing more on them. And a lot of them, even though it was a lot of theory, they have practical application. So a lot of identification. So they really were gem lessons, really. So yeah, and I was inspired by Rui as well, because like you say, I watched his first one on emeralds, congratulated him online, and he said, oh, well, you're an educator, you do them. And I said, okay, and here we go.
And so yours was kind of interesting as well, because I think you were the only person in this group that I think that's not doing it on Zoom. Because I remember the first one that I went to yours, I was like, whoa, suddenly I had been in Zoom world, and then I was in, I don't know, some other world.
Yes, that was on a different platform called GoTo Training.
Okay.
So after the conversation with Rui and deciding that I wanted to do webinars, I approached GEMA because I used to be a teacher for them for 5 years. And anyone who's put a presentation together, so you all know that it's a lot of work to research, put it together. So I figured the quickest way to be able to get involved is to speak to GEMA and see if I could use topics that I'd taught for them at conferences and things before. So they said, of course. So they hosted that website, which was GoTo Training. They helped with all the advertising and the editing after. And then I just had to check the subjects with them. And then, yeah, I just performed.
Okay. So you had almost like a little team behind you, which is kind of cool.
It was Elaine. So we say team, it was Elaine, who is like marketing, and she's amazing and works for GEMA. So yeah, it was Elaine that really did all of that. Yeah. Excellent.
Okay, well, we're gonna come back to all of this. So I'm just introducing everyone right now. So I know that same weekend that I started my thing, Julia, you started your thing, and the AIGS one, I think that was all almost on the same 2 or 3 days. So Michelle, tell us a little bit about the AIGS Gem Tips series and kind of Rui just kind of spoke a little bit, but tell us a little bit from your side of it. How did it all come together?
Hello, Justin. Yes. First of all, thanks for inviting us to have the gathering together. And for the school, we are always closely connected with the students and the cooperators. So during the lockdown period, we got a lot of wishes from our students. They would like us to have some online courses or Gemology Talks. So I have this idea. So we talked with Rui also, because we would like to invite him to help us together, maybe give the talk together. And Rui really gave us a lot of suggestions for hosting this and hosting as a professional institute. So we actually did the first one with Rui privately with AIG staff. And then on the 2nd of April, so we started our first one. And for our specialty is we try to manage it every week. And then for me, I'm the host. And our specialty is we also have our AIGS chairman, Mr. Kennedy Ho. He is a permanent guest to do the background introduction of all the guest speakers. So today I'm so happy because we have 2 of our invited guest speakers here also. One is Rui, one is Vincent. And thanks again for coming to join AIGS Gem Tips and sharing your experience and knowledge.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. I know yours was super fun. I caught a bunch of yours, but for me, the one I really loved was Victor Tuzlakov, because, you know, for me as a gem cutter, anyone interviewing gem cutters is like the path to my heart. So, and I know that first couple of weeks, it felt like there was so much energy, you know, especially as you were saying, Rui was in a few different shows, Vincent was in a few different shows, and it just felt like kind of everything was brewing up, and then it sort of exploded into it, you know, as we can see, at least here, 8 different ways, but I know there's been way more webinars than just the 8 of us, but it's kind of interesting to see how there was at least in this small part of the webinar world, there was a bit of a crossover energy, explosive kind of thing. So, okay, Michelle, we'll come back and speak a little bit more about this. So Nick, next up was GIA with the knowledge sessions. And so Nick, I know you are not the moderator of every one of these 35 webinars, but you were in some, and you were definitely sharing, I think, all of them, because I saw a lot of them via you on social media. So tell us a little bit about the GIA series and what their idea was, what their format was intended to be.
Right, okay. Yeah, thanks, Justin. Yeah, obviously it's a pleasure to be here with you all today. And as far as GIA is concerned, the idea for the gatherings was basically because the education was put on pause because of the COVID situation. We wanted to keep the students and, of course, the wider trade up to date with the in-house research which was going on, and just provide some knowledge. So hence the name, GIA Knowledge Sessions. It was inspired really to give the wider community and keep them engaged and informed and hopefully entertained at the same time. So I think that's a sort of a general pattern or theme from all of our presentations, is we were trying to do all of those 3 things at once and supply the information, keep everybody interested. And, you know, especially with someone like Rui, you can provide that entertainment touch as well. So it's important just to be a part of the wider community and keep everyone informed. And for the 35 webinars that we did, they're not all English. We actually had, I think 7 of them were in Mandarin, and we've also done some in Japanese, specifically for the Japanese market. And we had one gathering as well, which I know, and maybe you saw it because that was also Victor.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so awesome that, you know, with GIA specifically, that has such a big, you know, sort of worldwide family, it's awesome that you guys are able to do, you know, multilingual, you know, for different markets, and something maybe a little bit more than you know, for me, I could never have done something like that. But it's awesome that you guys kind of just went there and said, okay, we're going to do it with all these different. And to go back to Michelle real quick, Michelle, you guys were doing a few different languages as well, is that correct? English and Chinese webinars?
Yes, exactly. And for the 15th webinar we hosted is in Chinese, and we changed to another platform in China because you know, for the limitations for Chinese, it's difficult for them to using the Zoom. Always a lot of limitations and a lot of problems for entering inside. So we changed to the Tencent meeting. And for the internationals, they also can use by VOV. This is the international version. Yeah. So for both Chinese and people from around the world, they can both can join it. But we host it in Chinese. So we invited a Chinese professor from Tongji University.
Awesome. So yeah, again, so cool that you guys are doing, you know, just to push it further around the world and take it into non-English territory. I have so much respect for the next level of work that takes. So congrats. Okay, Ed, so you were I think one of the primary moderators for the CIBJO Jewelry Industry Voices. And then also you also joined Rui on his series as well. So you were kind of one of the few that was doing a lot of different stuff throughout the week. So tell us a little bit about how the CIBJO one started, and maybe a little bit about what your experience was like doing 2 different series is kind of at the same time.
Oh, well, I mean, to answer that directly, it was absolutely stimulating. And of course, working with Rui was a lot of fun, but it was also in that vibe, as you said, when everything was taking off. firstly, you know, as everybody said, thank you so much, Justin, for bringing us all together. You know, I know how difficult it is to herd a panel together, and I usually do 4 every week, and you've done 8 of us, so kudos to you. And my motivation really was the Godfather, let's face it, Rui Galopim. And when he started, Rui and I chat every so often, and I was so impressed, of course, with the whole ethos of bringing the community together, entertaining. But I said, Rui, this is great, but you're just talking about emeralds, and next week you're ruby or sapphire. And I proposed to him, I said, listen, let's get panelists together and discuss business-related topics. How is the industry getting through this? Basically, I was reverting to what I knew. In my time at RJC, I'd moderated panels. I'd also been on panels. And I was very used to traveling to trade shows around the world and going always to the seminars and to the panel discussions about industry topics. What's happening? What are the issues? What are the challenges? How's the industry dealing with them? So I proposed this to Rui, and this was around about the same time that CIBJO were coming in and sponsoring Rui's webinars so that he could enlarge the size of the room, because, you know, his stuff was going viral. Yeah. And it's not cheap to host these webinars on Zoom every month. So CIBJO very kindly came in and sponsored. So it made complete sense for me to propose this series of panel discussion webinars to Gaetano Cavalieri, the president of CIBJO. And he immediately agreed. So between Rui and I, we made that proposal and we put it through. I think originally my proposal was to do a first webinar on how is the industry coping with COVID compared to other crises. So to put it in a sort of historical perspective. We've never actually done that webinar, so we might go back to it one day. But I immediately started working with Steve Benson, who's the communications director from CIBJO, and he came up with the name, Jewelry Industry Voices, and the logo of that profile. And it took us a while to get started because we had to gather the first panelists. And that took a while because, quite frankly, a lot of the people that we wanted on the show were just too busy dealing with the crisis in their own businesses. Yeah. So, but our first one was, as you say, April 22nd. And we felt it was really important to sort of tackle the issues globally. I was watching what everybody was doing from different trade associations in different countries. The US especially, a lot was going on there. I especially credit Ben Smithy from the Smithy Group in the US, who was putting out some great stuff about how businesses should stay relevant and not go dark at this time. That was an inspiration for me to just get out there and get in front of people. And then all these different associations were talking about what was happening in their countries. So I felt we needed to tackle it from a global perspective and the whole supply chain from mining to retail. And of course, that's one of the reasons why we went to CIBJO, because that's their remit. And we had the first one talking about the legal perspective of how to deal with it with Tiffany Stevens from JVC, the Jewelers Vigilance Committee. The financial perspective, Eric Jens, a very well-known financier, and he joined as well. And then we went to see really how is it for retailers right now if you have to be closed. So Amit Damani from the Damani Group in Dubai joined us, and Gaetano Cavalieri. And so that was the panel for the first one, and it worked. And here we are now, as Rui said earlier.
Yeah. One of the things I thought was really cool with the CIBJO series was, you know, most of the other ones were really educational focused or interview focused, you know, just sort of spreading this personal knowledge. And I thought the CIBJO one was quite interesting because it was kind of like a real-time reflection of what was going on, as well as, you know, like you were saying, how to deal with it, how to get through it, how do we adapt to the, you know, this new crisis that we're in. So I thought that was quite helpful, really, and just to keep people thinking forward and not really to get too stuck in whatever was going on in that particular moment for the viewers. So thanks for keeping us looking forward.
Well, let's go. I mean, you could say, and you got the pictures there on the screen. So, you know, after the first few where we were really talking about COVID, we realized actually people were getting a bit tired of COVID all the time, COVID. So we started dropping it from the title and trying to find other more positive forward-looking topics. I mean, the first one was surviving. And then the second one was strategizing for how we get ready for the next phase. But then we started to just, I mean, I trained as a journalist initially decades ago. And so Steve is a journalist by training as well. And so we just kicked into thinking of interesting topics each week that would keep people stimulated and contribute to what was already out there from the different associations, from all of the, the 7 of you here. We're doing amazing things. So it was all about trying to complement what was already out there and find a niche that supported the industry.
Yeah, and I think you guys did a great job at exactly filling that niche. So thanks for being here. Okay, so next up we have Vincent. And so Vincent, as we have said already a few times, you were the guest of many of the shows of people that are on here. So if you came late, maybe it's only because you were already on everybody else's webinar first. But tell us a little bit about where the idea to start the Field Gemology Talks came from.
Well, it's very simple. I think, like everybody, I saw Rui doing his first. Then I was, I was interested. I say, oh, okay, that's something new. And then I received a message from Michelle, and Michelle asked me, Vincent, we would like, are you available in a few days? We would like you to speak about something, maybe, could you speak about rubies from Greenland? I say, well, okay, well, I can indeed do that. So I had no idea about how it worked. And basically, I was taught about how to use Zoom by Michelle. So Michelle, gave me a crash course on how to use Zoom. And then I did the thing with Michelle, and one of the person attending the talk was Rui. And Rui jumped on me and said, Vincent, can you be my guest for the one next week? So I say, yeah, I can do that. What do you want me to speak about? And we started with that one. And then you asked me to come and do something for you. Yeah. And that's the way I learn. And then I saw the one that did Edward, and I saw that GA was doing that. And, I look at all that, and this is exactly what Edward was saying. I say, yeah, that sounds, the whole thing is interesting, but I was very impressed with Rui doing that basically for free. This is something that really got me, because I discussed with Rui, and he said, everybody is suffering during this time. You have a lot of people who are in big trouble and things like that. So basically, I want to do something for the community. I want to, basically, it's time to be generous. And, I cannot give money, but I can give some of my time. And I was thinking, yeah, that's something I can do also. I can give some of my time. And then I was thinking about my friends in the field, people that I meet when I travel, and then I cannot meet anymore because with this COVID crisis, field gemology basically is dead, and it's dead for maybe 1 more year, because no traveling, and most of the gem miners have stopped doing gem mining because there are no buyers to buy, and most of them, I learned that many of them went to gold mining because the gold price are so high. So gem producing areas are quite empty, and it's kind of a disaster for many people. And I say, when will I see again my friends, from the field? And then I was thinking that, yeah, maybe that could be the niche, because most of these webinars that like Rui was doing, like Michelle was doing, with AIGS, like GA, they were speaking about, you could see people that basically we see usually. And I was thinking, okay, maybe I can bring some people that I know from the field, or just, people who helped me to go on this 148 expedition, and try to motivate them to come to speak. And that might be interesting for people who have time and who like to know a little bit more about what is going on in these gem producing countries, because I think if this crisis is affecting a lot, gem consuming country, for gem producing country, I think it's even worse. So, okay, we started. I started, like that, and trying to motivate some people, from my group of friends to come and speak. and that was what was motivating me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Finding a niche.
one of the things that I really like with the field Gemology Talks was, as you said, some of the people are just they're sort of heavy hitters in what they do, but they're also sort of obscure because they're all in projects in different countries and they're not necessarily always being in our awareness. So I felt like I got to meet so many people as the co-host, so many people that I just didn't know before, that I feel like now I will continue relationships with or work with them in some way later, or just get to know them better. So I really liked, I mean, obviously I got to be inside of the webinar of all those ones, but it just felt like such a diverse connection and community that came with that series.
Yeah, and I was super impressed with what Rui and Julia were doing. When I saw the webinar from Julia, I say, about, I think the first one was about leg glass. I say, okay, I'm not going to do that because probably I will not do it as good as she did. So, no. Then I saw Rui. Michelle was inviting many people around. I like the format with Michelle because sometimes you had two people speaking and she was taking people from outside. So I say, okay, there is something interesting with that. But, and I was discussing with Rui, and he was giving a talk that he was giving usually in a seminar. And I was thinking, I just don't want to do that. I have many talks, I just don't want to do my talk because this talk will go on YouTube. And before, people were inviting me, to go to speak to a Gemmological Association. And basically, they were paying me a plane ticket, sometimes paying me a hotel and things like that. And I like to go there and to meet the public. And I say, I just don't want to do that once and then put that on YouTube. And then nobody will invite me anymore to speak about one of the cool stuff I do. So I say, I have to find something else in order for, after this crisis, maybe some people still feel that it could be interesting to invite me to speak about something. So I say, I'm not going to put all my old talks online. No.
Okay.
No.
And so finally, Eloise, we have the Mineral Talks Live. So you had another unique niche. So tell us a little bit about your series and kind of what the idea behind that was, and also what did it turn into?
Well, hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here as everybody else. First of all, I'm back at work in the museum at the School of Mines. So if you hear weird noises behind me, it's just visitors running around the museum. So I guess I'm the only one here back full-time. So that's what's happening behind me here. The purpose, well, as everybody else, Rui was the one inspiring me, and it all began by watching Rui's seminars like 2 to 4 times a week sometimes. I was like watching the 2 per day, like on Tuesdays and Fridays, and eventually invited me over, and I was kind of reluctant. It's like, Rui, I'm comfortable speaking in front of a camera like this, but not seeing anybody behind. I'm not sure I can do it. So he pushed me, and eventually I said, yes, fine, that's fair enough, I will do it. And I talked about color diamonds, and it was a great experience. We had a lot of people joining. And what I've been noticing as well is the very active chats, and people were interacting. It's not only between the people who were giving the lectures, it was also people interacting on the chat and saying hi and discussing among each other. So I noticed that. I was like, this is really interesting. People feel the need of being connected. So that was at the beginning of April. And in May, I was able to come back to the museum, but the museum was not allowed to open yet. And I began some live on Instagram, so people can still visit the museum while not being able to come in. And we had a temporary exhibit as well. So every other day or something, I was filming a bit of the museum and talking about a very specific topic. But eventually, I discussed with 2 of my colleagues, Raquel Alonso Perez from the Harvard Museum in Boston, and Brian Sobora, who is a producer at Blue Cat Production. And we were talking about the fact that all the trade shows were being canceled. So there were no points, no meanings for all of us from all around the world to connect and to get together. And I don't know if you have ever been to a trade show, to Tucson, to Munich, to the Sainte-Marie-aux-Mines show, or to the Vegas show, but you spend most of your time not looking at gems or minerals, but chatting with people.
Yeah.
And a lot of time chatting with people and interacting with your friends. And that's why you go to those shows. So not only we could not see the rocks, not able to see the gems, but we were not able to catch up with our friends. So we came up a bit later on. So we began in June, and but the purpose for us was to get connected to the people we could not see. So we were trying to get only guests. So it's the three of us, Brian Sobora, Raquel Alonso Perez, and myself, trying to get people from our community to get together and to speak, to get to know each other, and to maybe see their rocks if they have rocks. So it could be minerals, gems, carvings. So for example, we had Patrick de Dreher from Idarubestein, who showed us his carving and actually carved in front of us. We had Julian Ralph from Mindat. So, you know, like some of you use the Mindat website to know the species. Well, we had him on the show. We had Peter McGaw, who is a collector, and the show organizer, one of the show organizers for the Tucson show. And it was all about chatting, interacting, at the same time, looking at the rocks, looking at the gems. Bill Larson was on the show as well, and showing up some great rocks. So it was not educational. It was more about sharing a love for minerals, gems, carvings, and getting to know better those people when we could not interact physically at shows. So that was really what we were trying to do.
Ed, do you
and
have a
Edward
comment?
is raising his hand over there.
Can I just add something? Eloise, that was so beautifully put, but something you said that I wanted to add to because it's so real. Our industry, the gem industry and the jewelry industry, is primarily about people, and it's primarily about connections. And for many of us, those connections are very global and international. And the trade shows and the conferences are our meeting points. So you're absolutely right. When we were realizing that the trade shows couldn't take place, we had to replicate that way that we come together and discuss issues, show products, work out what's happening, and develop those relationships that help us to drive our business forward. And I think that was, you know, it's been a motivator for all of us to tap into that connection and that importance of the relationships that we have in this industry. When I talk to my other friends about what we've been doing with webinars, people in other industries, they said, yeah, we've been doing webinars in ours, but you know, they're kind of not so well attended. And I'm kind of giving them the numbers of what Rui was doing, what I was doing, what we were all doing collectively. And they're blown away. But that's because this is such an important aspect of the industry, is the relationships and the connections that we have that were taken away from us. So, you know, everybody's done webinars, and it's not just people here. There, as you said, there were so many more. That's what we were trying to replicate, I think.
Yeah. And I think part of that is just because we're in such a, at least my point of view, we love the industry that we're in, and we kind of love all the people that are in it as well. And when we all get together, we love talking about really nerdy stuff together. And so Eloise, as your series progressed, it kind of evolved as well, right? So tell us a little bit about the happy hours.
Yeah, so, you know, it's because we were interacting among the guests and the hosts and visiting museums in all around the world and still looking at the chat and seeing this chat very active. So we decided, okay, fair enough. Sometimes we open the mic at the end of the webinar, and we're seeing that people would not let go. We had said, okay, no more than 1 hour, no more than 1 hour. And we always go further and further, like answering questions and all of that. So it's like, okay, why don't we try to do something where we don't have necessarily a guest only speaking, but where anybody can share their own story. And the purpose was, okay, you can come to this free meeting. This time it was not a webinar, but a Zoom meeting. You can log in, turn on your camera, and we will take turn and open the mic. The only thing that you had to do is to have one rock with you and to share a story about that rock. And that was the purpose. And again, it's really hard to close the meeting because, you know, at the beginning, everybody's shy and not necessarily willing to share. But at the end, like, it's one story after another. And you know, when you collect sometimes people collect their own rocks. So they have a great background story. Sometimes some rocks have like 200 years of history behind them. So it's just wonderful, and people can interact again, and we can recreate this sense of sharing the stories behind the rocks. So, and still that's still ongoing as well. And for us, we're not stopping here. We arrived later on, and we see actually the numbers of people attending increasing. So we're still continuing our webinars, and actually we probably will continue. Well, we have a full schedule until the end of this year, at least. So every Wednesday.
Oh.
Thank goodness we are 3 people to co-organize it. That helps a lot.
Yeah. I think the idea of the happy hour is so cool. I don't think anyone else has dared to go that far into just total engagement with the audience. So I think I kind of want to go. I haven't seen any yet, so I kind of want to go on the happy hour and just to watch it, just to see how the dynamic works, because it's obviously very different than this format where we can't see everyone in the audience. Ed?
It's always important to name check people that have been doing happy hours, and Kerry Gregory from Gemmology Rocks in UK has been doing a weekly happy hour, and but she's so bubbly and wonderful. You wouldn't want to miss a Friday evening having a drink with her.
It's true. It's true. So just while we're kind of in this recapping mode, I did a little number crunching, and between just the 8 of us in the last 23 weeks, we've done 153 webinars. And that doesn't count Rui doing double sessions for those weeks and weeks and weeks, but just the non-duplicated webinars. Between the 8 of us, our groups have done 153 webinars, which is a bit crazy, I think. I mean, obviously is expressing, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's because we're crazy or we just love the people so much that we couldn't stop saying hi, but. And of course, I don't want to leave anyone else out. So many other people in our community and in our industries have been doing such amazing webinars this whole time. And I hope I didn't leave anyone out. I'm sure I must have, because I didn't know all of them that were going on, but I saw at least one of almost all of these from time to time on Instagram or on Zoom or wherever they were at. And I definitely wanted to give a shout out and a thanks to the GIA Alumni London group, who were publicizing most of these webinars. And if you go back, it was very helpful for me putting together the slideshow, because I just went back through their Instagram, and every single flyer of every single webinar is there. And some of them I never even knew about because I just didn't see them all. And also the Gemmo training group in Facebook that just popped up since COVID started. They were also really sharing a lot of the webinar flyers and just trying to get people connected to the webinars as they were happening. So I just wanted to say a special thanks to those 2 groups for supporting us. And again, everything it's just been volunteer based, and everybody's just putting their time and effort and energy into it. So that's kind of where we are now. Or at least that's how we got to this point with the 8 of us. So let's talk a little bit about what the webinars experience has been like, and I haven't thought of a good way that I'm going to go around the group with this, but first thing that I wanted to talk about was kind of like some of the challenges and some of the benefits of even just doing the webinar. So maybe I'll throw it back to Rui since you kicked it off. What do you think? What's been? I know you had said to me earlier, talking about doing them in different languages as well. So what for you? What was some of the hurdles and the challenges of doing so many webinars every week?
Yeah, sleep deprivation for most, but that's not the case. Just one comment on Vincent when he said that he doesn't want to put his videos on YouTube. I can understand, but everyone that buys records from rock bands, we listen to the song and we want to go to the live concert. So Vincent, people want to go and see your performance. So don't be afraid of sharing your music, because people, nevertheless, they will definitely want to have that human connection with you in live somewhere in the world. So I think it's pretty much, people want to be entertained in person. It's okay to watch on YouTube, but it's better to be live. And you are a rock star as far as Gemmology is concerned. About the hurdles, I mean, I'm not a native English of the language, so I'm already not speaking good English. But that was a limitation. Not that I care much about it, because I just carry on. like when you play music, you do a note outside of the place and you just carry on. But I remember don't having the right vocabulary, don't pronouncing the words correctly, and maybe in the Q&A, don't be as gracious as Julia Griffith is, or Edward Johnson, or Nick, because they are native, and yourself, you are natives of the language, you have all the idioms and you have much more resources, and that was actually a limitation. I also did in Spanish and in Portuguese. Spanish, in Portugal, we don't speak Spanish. We speak Portuguese with a Spanish accent, that we can get away with it. But anyway, in English, that was probably my biggest challenge. And then, because I did online courses before, I knew that I did have to have the right equipment. So at the beginning, if you watch the videos, I was using the computer camera that was not very good quality. And I ordered one from Amazon, and I got the new camera like 1 month after. And all of a sudden, I had much better image quality. And I bought this microphone, I bought this earpiece. So to have the good equipment, the good tools helped me a lot on, for instance, avoid feedback when you have guests. Yeah. And another thing was when we had guests, and Edward, maybe he can share his experience, to ask everyone to look at the camera, because when we do media, if we look like this to the monitor, we are seeing the presentation ourselves, but we are not connecting with the people. And I got good friends here in Portugal that they do television, and they gave me very strict instructions or what I should do, what I should avoid, and things like that, and always look at the camera. And I mean, it was fun, and I remember having briefings with some of the guests, and then all of a sudden you had the webinar, and everybody was like this. And but that's it. But it was really fun. Hurdles, I mean, the amount of work that it involves, not only refining the presentations, that most of them I had already made for previous presentations elsewhere, but all the social media that you had to do to promote it. And it's LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and all the post webinar things, because responding to each and every person that sends you a very kind email or a message, you also have to do that. So it takes you a lot of your time, but it really was heartwarming, if there is this expression in English, because people were so kind, and I was always looking forward to see the messages and just end my day in my own happy hour with a beer or with a glass of wine and reading the nice messages. And it felt, I mean, I was home like everybody else, so I was in the same position.
Yeah. Who else? Who else had some challenges? Michelle?
Yes, and during organizing the webinar, I feel like the most hurdle is the connection problem, actually. In the only period, maybe the Zoom platform is very perfect. The connection is very good, and maybe not so many people join it. But I feel like maybe more and more people are using Zoom. So I find like we have a lot of problems with the connection. Like people cannot enter in, and when they enter in, they cannot see the screen. So always have this kind of problems. Yeah. So also like even though we practice before the formal webinar, right? And in the practice period is very good, everything is perfect. But in the final formal one, it's always have some coincidence, like some problems occurring. So it's like it's a little bit difficult to control sometimes. But it's very good. We try to manage it very well. And so, and also for language, also my problem, because I'm Chinese people. So for language, sometimes it's difficult for me to find more words to communicate with people. And also for Rui, he also gave me a lot of suggestions for sitting in front of the camera, because he always gave me messages looking at the camera. So it's very like interesting stories with me and with me between Rui. So, but we got a lot of fun, and it's most interesting to doing the webinar because it's a very meaningful thing, and we really got a lot of like. Even though it's time consuming and the patience consuming thing, but you really like you are doing something to support people, so you feel like you get a sense of achievement and also satisfaction. So that's what the meaning also you get from the webinar. You are doing, because we are all the hosts. So I think we have the same feeling.
Yeah, I know for me.
You know, that's so funny. Sorry, that's so funny that he was texting you, Michelle, saying, look at the camera, because my main memory of my first webinar for CIBJO was these texts coming in from Rui. Look at the camera, look at the camera. And he was just, but when I thought about it afterwards, he was getting really, this isn't, by the way, the Rui Appreciation Society webinar, but it is turning a little bit that way. But he got early on what it was about. It was about, we were beaming into people's homes every day, every week, every hour, whatever. And it was about the connection. And when you're looking at the camera, they feel that you're talking to them.
Yeah.
So that was why Rui was pushing us to look at the camera. It was great. It was really important.
And it's, 1 second, Eloise. It has been interesting to watch. I think if you go back and watch any of our first few episodes where we were still learning Zoom, we were still learning camera technique and mic technique and getting our feeling about the whole thing, you know, together. I'm sure we can see a progression. I know for me, one of the biggest challenges, and maybe you guys have all had this, especially for Julia and Rui, who have done not interviews, but when you're actually, and Vincent as well, when you're giving a presentation that's your own, and the chat thing keeps popping up, the Q&A keeps popping up, and you can sort of keep reading messages that you don't mean to read, and it really throws you off. I know with me and Vincent, I was really happy to be the co-host where my main job was just to do Q&A, and I didn't really have to talk too much, because managing the questions is a whole job sometimes, and it can be tricky. Eloise, what were you going to say? Sorry.
Edward was my Justin in the home gemology.
Yeah.
He was doing that for me. Otherwise, I couldn't keep abreast of the chat and Q&A. But he was nasty because in the Q&A he was only choosing the hard questions. But anyway, that's something.
Okay, Eloise.
Yeah, sorry about that. This is such an important point. I mean, that's why, like, among the three of us, we have one person dedicated to actually hosting the webinar. It's Brian Sobora. It's that's what he does. That's his job, is to be a producer, is to be on camera, is to be behind the camera, in front of the camera. And actually that's, since the COVID situation, he has been out of job. So usually he goes and makes documentary at shows, at trade shows. And since then he has been out of job. So that's why for us, he was the perfect host. And we are kind of with Raquel behind the scene and helping him preparing the question, doing the Q&A during the lecture, and saying, stop, it's time to stop because we are like 1 hour over, and doing the fun things behind the scene. Once again, one people for us would not have been possible because we are dedicated, committed for this show once a week at very precise hour, and we're committed until the end of the year at least. So one person every week, it would not just be possible for us. So for us, at least the most challenging thing was to be consistent and dedicated, and for a very long period of time. One person to do one job, too much for us. That's what I wanted to say on that subject.
And Nick, what did you want to say?
Well, yes, I mean, I was obviously going to agree there, but having the support behind the scenes is very important. And if you're doing everything on your own, credit to Justin and Rui, it's really time consuming, and it's really something which you have to put all your effort into. So, we're also lucky GIA, but we have a team of 4 people. I mean, I can just mention them quickly: Tiffany, Amber, Kelly, and Mike. And they work on all of this background stuff for us, and they help us with all of the locations as well. So whether it's actually in America or it's going to be in Japan, China, they help with all of these and preparing and advertising as well. So, and on the challenge side, I see that a couple of comments have come up saying GI webinars are the most challenging for me because of a time difference. So yes, the time differences are a major thing for all of us, because we're trying to find the suitable time for everybody to be able to participate in the webinars. And it's on a global basis. It's just not possible to find the perfect time for everybody. So of course, GIA being American based on the whole, we're aiming for that part of the market to capture the most people to actually join the webinars. And then that is where the recordings are very important, because the recordings allow everybody. It doesn't matter what time they're being held. And a lot of people have said, oh, thank goodness you recorded it. So they're very important. But again, coming back to Vincent's point, in future, when you're trying to give a presentation or something, you got to be careful what content you use.
Yeah. And I know, Vincent, you and I had a lot of conversation about that in terms of realizing that at one point more people are watching the YouTube than even watching the webinar live because of, you know, they've gone back to work or because they're not in the right time zone or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I come back on the challenge. That was exactly that. I was also very disturbed with the chat when I did the first webinar with Michel and then with Rui, and the chat was all the time popping, and I'm not very good at multitasking. So that's why when we did this thing together, the conversation together, I thought, okay, that's the format, because if I have to do everything, you know, from during the webinar, it's become very, very complicated. So this is why basically we did this format together, because we don't have a team at the back. It's just Justin and me. And I'm speaking with the host, and Justin is doing the technique. And actually for me, the most difficult thing was to find the guest, because most of my friends from the field, they are not used to speak in public. And they say, well, you know, I don't like to speak in front of people, and they are also not very computer literate. So many of them never use Zoom, they don't watch webinar, they are not online, they don't have Facebook, they don't have Instagram, they don't have this kind of thing, but I had to motivate them to come to speak and then to make the thing kind of cozy for them with the help of Justin. So that was a little bit, that was the main challenge, to find the people and to make them comfortable so they can speak to the public. And but the benefit was great, because I could see that many people were interested in this talk. So I, you know, on the chat and later, you know, with a message, it was quite cool. But the whole thing was taking about 2 days per week of work. Yeah. When you think the whole thing, for me and Justin, for me, it was about 2 days of work, because we had before the webinar, we organized a kind of test session in order for our guests to have some practice about Zoom. Some of them, you know, that was the first time they were downloading, you know, Zoom in order to start the webinar. So we had to do exactly what Michel was teaching me, you know, at the first step. Okay, well, Zoom, so you have that, the mute, and then you have the thing. If you want to ask questions, the questions are coming there. It was quite a challenge.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I know for me, I never used Zoom before Rui's webinar. I never even heard of it. Like, it was like, download Zoom. What is Zoom? Okay, I don't know. But now I feel like we've all become Zoom masters in some way. Julia, what about you in terms of challenges? So you were not having guests. So you were the sole star of your show and you had to continuously create content. How was that?
It does echo a lot what other people have said in regards to the time commitment that goes into it. You're looking at least 3 days a week. For a later webinar series I did, it's almost a full-time job to promote and edit yourself. So I was spending about 35 hours a week on that. So yeah, the challenge of the time commitment, but you get that huge benefit where you do feel like you're well, you're being appreciated and people are hearing you. You get almost this community built around what you're doing. You have the same people coming in every week and saying, hi. You know, I should give a shout out to Jane from Winchester because she watches everything that I do and she's amazing. And it's just, yeah, it's just a really lovely thing, and it brings people together and people are learning. And people still come back to me now and say, look at this picture. This is a flux-filled ruby, and I know it because of your lecture. And you go, wow, that's a really amazing benefit to have. It's phenomenal.
I know for sure the chat room, and I think Rui's was really the most vibrant chat room of all the ones that I've been on. Sometimes it's like there's so much happening in the chat, even beside the webinar. There's like a whole other narrative going on that as the host I never even see that, but when I'm in yours I actually have the leisure to actually just look at what people are writing in the chat, and sometimes it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing how much other content is being generated in response to the webinar. Yeah, go ahead.
it happens that occasionally we had one or two people really knowledgeable on subjects that they were inspired by the information that was shared, and it was a second lecture going on with real attendance just on the chat room, and that was absolutely amazing. And Edward Johnson, he was the one looking at the chat, because I was focused looking at the camera, so I was totally oblivious of the Q&A and what was happening on the chat room. And it was his job, and he was doing it so brilliantly and so graciously. And he has an advantage. Let me tell you this because it's important. He's one of the few natives of the language in English that appreciates the fact that the majority of the audience is not native of the language. So he speaks really slowly, avoids the idiomatic expressions like those idioms, raining cats and dogs. And I mean, it's an English expression, but if you translate it literally, it's like, wow. And there are many other expressions and maybe vocabulary that is not so common, and he knows exactly how to use that wording. So it was really good to have him and to have his support. And without his support, the energy of the webinar, when actually the lecture ended, it wouldn't be as high as it was. And he was totally responsible.
All right, that's enough. That's enough of that. That's enough of that.
Okay, but you gave me £50, so I have to.
But we created our own idioms, didn't we? Books from the bottom shelf. That was a good one.
Yeah.
But
that was the only email question I got for this webinar, was if Rui can give us a book from the bottom shelf.
But for people that, because I have to get up, but today I'm in very inappropriate shorts. So I have a shirt. But because I put the shirt out of respect, because I was wearing a T-shirt, and but not today, because Edward, he was, oh, Rui, go there, and then it's.
Yeah, we don't want to know. We don't want to know. Okay, so okay, what do you guys think? And I'm going to throw this one to Ed first, because I think he'll have a good idea about it. But what do you guys think the impact, the cultural impact, as far as our gem and jewelry trade community? What was the impact of the webinars, aside from just entertaining us, which I think we've all done a great job? Ed, what do you think? Because I know you guys were really keeping track of statistics and stuff. What, has it really connected with as many people as we hoped?
Yeah, well, there's two ways to answer the impact, all right? There's the technical with the data, which Rui and I kind of gathered as we were going along. But then there is the other sort of intangible one, that it really has held thousands of people together through this time. And that I think will bear fruit in years to come. I think Gemmology and the industry will be stronger through the knowledge that's been shared through all these people and more. But the relationships that have been started literally through the chat box at times, and that will bear fruit. So that is an impact that's come through all this. Rui, maybe you can talk to your numbers in a minute, but I mean, we did 50 for the Jewelry Industry Voices, starting in April, we did 15 webinars. We had 54 different panelists that I had to gather each week. That was a challenge in itself. And we had 6,300 people in total watch us. Oh, thank you, Justin, there it is. And between the weekly attendance and the YouTube, there were almost 500 people who were choosing to spend an hour 15 listening to me and 4 people babble on about something, which I still find amazing. And, Rui's was like hundreds more even. So that impact is there and it's tangible.
Yeah.
Rui, you want to share your numbers as well?
I think Eloise had her hand up real quick.
Oh, sorry.
For me, it was not about numbers. I mean, for us, we have between 200 and max 300 people. But it's about I think things going to change because we are showing people who are not necessarily accessible. People who don't think about, oh my God, I can talk to Patrick Dreher. Who can think that they can talk to Patrick Dreher? And then they can open the mic and they can chat directly with him or ask him a question. who knows the face behind Mindat? Not a lot of people knows the face behind the Mindat website. Who has been to the Vienna Museum but has met the curator before, and suddenly they're in direct contact with the curator. So again, it's more about connecting the people, and these people that maybe you might be afraid to talk to, the dealers, the collectors with wonderful, great collections. That usually don't see the collection, or you don't try to interact with those people because they are the famous Bill Larson or the famous Peter McGaw, and suddenly you can interact directly with them. So for me, the impact is, again, really to be able to chat with those people that are sometimes really high and you can't approach. You have the feeling that you can approach, and suddenly they get accessible and you can talk to them.
Yeah, I actually had the exact same feeling. I did one with Richard Hughes, where he just went around his house showing us all the old books in his collection. And once we it's like I didn't exactly know what the webinar was going to be like until we did it. And then after it was finished, I was like, wow, when can you ever go into Richard Hughes's house and see his book collection and see all of his vintage books? And like, he's a true book nerd. You know, he loves his book collection and he had so much to say. And I was like, that was so unique. Like, I can't believe that I got him to do that. And it was awesome. And I'm sure all of us have had some really almost maybe surreal moments in our conversations with people where you're just like, I can't believe that, you know, maybe we got this combination, or, you know, like right now, I can't believe that I got all of you guys in here at one time and we found a time that everyone, you know what I mean, just surreal stuff. What else? What else do you guys think in terms of impact, Nick?
Yeah, I just wanted to add the fact that it's opened up all of our subjects to a much wider audience. I mean, this is one of the main things. If we are looking at the situation before COVID, and we went to conferences, we went to the odd show, whatever, we had a fairly limited audience, really. And a lot of those were people we know and we see regularly. However, now that the webinars exist, they actually open it up to virtually anybody who wants to participate around the world. As long as the marketing and the promotion is good enough to reach them and they're interested in the subject, then that means that they will join. And they might know nothing about the subject. It might be, oh, gems, well, that might be something quite interesting to actually learn about. And I had one gentleman contact me, and I must admit, if he's watching, I haven't replied yet, and I will do, who was asking about sort of future webinars and doing things together. And he said, well, you know, during COVID, I learned how to do, you know, video editing and to take part in videos and webinars, etc. I learned it during COVID lockdown. So people will actually learn new subjects they probably wouldn't have been interested in before. So I think that's an important point.
Yeah, I wonder how many people who are not at all involved, like as you were saying, people that had never experienced the trade before came and saw some webinars. I guess we'll have no way of knowing, but interesting idea. Michelle, did you just have your hand up?
And even though because everybody is like locked down at home, right? So I feel like they have the time to settle down and to spend time to learn by themselves. So I think webinar is a very good format. So they can just spend more time to learn some new knowledge. That's why for hosting the webinars, I got a lot of feedback from them. I think they find the right places to enrich themselves with more new knowledge. So, and also they can build more contacts through the webinars. And I think for this webinars and the live videos will be like promote the development of the industry.
Yeah. Rui.
The majority of people that attended the home gemology, they were retail salespeople, and there were quite a few. We reached like registrant about 27,000. So I think with real attendees, just over 20,000, because a lot of them, they just don't show up. But it gave them the opportunity to listen to people like Damien Cody, because if you want to listen to Damien Cody speaking about opals, you have to go to a Gemmological conference. Otherwise, where does a salesperson from Cartier, Van Cleef, Harry Winston, Chopard, how can they listen to those kind of specialists. The same with others. I mean, the other webinars that were going on all across the globe. If you want to hear Nick talking about shells and pearls, you must go to a conference. Otherwise, you don't. And GIA is different because the GIA, they put everything online, which is brilliant. I didn't attend the Gemmological Symposium, but I actually feel that I was there because I watched all the presentations. But I mean, the good thing, as Edward was saying, the good thing in this industry, we want a human connection. And Eloise, she told something which is, it's really true. We saw the human side of the professionals that we are, and our colleagues that are also professionals. They were just people like us, and the proximity was pretty much huge. I mean, you were saying that you were at Dick Hughes' house, and everybody was there with you having this visit. When Eloise was doing those live sessions from the museum, you were actually at the museum. So this kind of unique opportunities are things that for one side you couldn't do otherwise. The other thing, you were looking at us. We are people, and we were being looked as people as well, not as like whoa, but normal people. That our profession is just what we do.
Yeah, really well said. So, you know, kind of moving on from that, what did you guys learn individually from doing these webinars, whether it's on the tech side of actually doing Zoom or in terms of moderating or doing a sort of long run series? Vincent?
Yeah, number one, I learned a lot of things from the people I was interviewing. Some of them were my friend. I was regularly going to visit them in the field, but there are some of the stories they say when they were online, they never told me when, we went there. So I think some of the people kept, some anecdote and things like that we never spoke about, and suddenly they were popping out in this thing. There was something that really interested me is when, for example, I interview Gaston Giuliani, who has, he's a geologist and he has written many articles on a geology subject about gemstone. And when you start to interview him and you discuss with him and you ask him to tell basically their life, with people with 40 or 50 years of experience, you see the connection from, behind all this research work. You see the human connection and the human experience behind all this research work. So sometimes you have an article and you wonder how these people were able to get that idea, where it's coming from. And then during the webinar, you say, oh, I saw that, and then he gave me the idea about that, on that, and you had the whole thing. And then it became very clear and obvious, and I was really fascinated by that. And so that was the first thing I learned. I learned much more about the people I interviewed. And then, you had very interesting questions coming from the public. Again, with the chat and people after that sending me message on social media and, meeting new people and getting new ideas. So it's a kind of a funny period. And there was so much information going online during the past 3 or 4 months that, I think that if people want to see a bit, to go deep in a subject, you just through the subject and you see the amount of information that is online now on YouTube and on past webinars and things like that. It might take you 1 or 2 weeks just to go through all of that. So it's just massive. I think we still have quite a lot of things to learn because I was not able to see all the webinar done by Eloise or by GIA or by Rui. I just had no time.
Yeah. So what else? What else did you guys learn from your experience, Julia?
Not to sound too cheesy about it, but I think maybe some of you also feel the same. But it's just that feeling of accomplishment that you get when you just go for it. It feels so daunting before you start, and you might feel like you can't do it, but you commit, and suddenly once you're committed, you have to just do it, go for it. And it's just that, the feeling of achievement that you get and how much you can achieve if you just, step off that cliff, so to speak. So, you do start flying, which is really nice because it can be scary. But yeah, it's that feeling of accomplishment if you just go for it. And that community that then has been built from it, I think is great.
Yeah. Eloise?
Just a quick comment. I've learned that I can do a webinar from the train in France. I've been like doing the webinars from all around France. People were joking about it because sometimes I was in Paris, sometimes I was at my parents' place, sometimes I was next to Belgium, and sometimes I was in the train. So everything is possible.
Wow. That's weird.
Eloise, I remember in the beginning you were saying, no, I cannot do. No, never, I cannot. And now you, even from the train, you do.
Yeah.
I know, that's your fault, Rui. That's your fault.
Did anyone else have an experience over the last few months where you were like not really having a good day and maybe not really feeling like you wanted to do a webinar, but then once you started doing the webinar, you got in a really good mood from the interaction and everything? Ed?
Yeah, well, Rui always put me in a good mood when I was working with him on Tuesdays and Fridays. That was like the highlight of my week. But yeah, they give you a certain energy because you connect to people, and we were all locked in. But there was a moment, you know, when you click the leave meeting or end meeting for all, and you've been like interacting sometimes with hundreds of people, and then you click that button, and suddenly you're just alone in a quiet bedroom or wherever you are, you know, and that's weird. I would have to go and speak to my wife or a neighbor, or just I had to have some connection, because you can't just stop it. You can't just press the button and stop.
Yeah, Vincent.
Yeah, sometime after the webinar just stopped, and then I take my phone and I phone to Justin. And then we continue speaking for half an hour after the end of the thing.
That's what we do as well. That's what we do as well with my two co-hosts. We just pick up the phone when we chat about the webinar that just happened and plan the next one. Yeah.
I go drinking.
I mean, it kind of makes sense though, right? Like if you normally do talks at a gemological conference or at some kind of a meeting, there's always a sort of after the talk chat, and then you might go for dinner or something. So it kind of makes sense, you know, that's how we normally do it. Suddenly we feel right now like we are at the conference or whatever, but yeah, like Ed said, as soon as you hit stop, suddenly, I'm just in my house again. So, Rui.
And if I may say so, when we prepare for a webinar, and I learned this from Edward many years ago, after a lecture that I gave at GIA Alumni in London, I was lecturing there for a half an hour for students at the alumni. And then I was asking him how it was. And he said, when you do a presentation, you have 3 presentations: the one you've prepared, the one you actually delivered, and then the one you think that you should have done on your way home. And that is so true. And it felt the same with the webinars. I clicked this leave button. I said, I should have done this like this, because everything was improvised from beginning to scratch. There is no planning. Otherwise you have a plan, which is a lineup of your PowerPoint presentation. But anyway, everything is improvised. You don't have a script.
Yeah. And I think that is one thing that is very different than doing a talk at a gemological conference where you're on stage and it is sort of formal. You're in formal clothes and you're in a formal setting and you're not in your library or whatever. And suddenly the webinar has made things a little bit more casual in some situations. You know, you kind of assume everyone's in their pajamas or something, and you are maybe underneath the camera, you are too. So, you know, somehow it just changes your mentality a little bit. Oh, I thought you were going to say, Nick.
Yeah, but the thing which remains the same is the questions. You will still have the questions there. And, you know, when you're answering a question, whether it's at a conference or it's online, you're obviously going to try your best to give the best answer, the correct answer, the appropriate answer. And the difference now is with webinars that will be recorded forever. So if you actually answer something incorrectly, or you think about it afterwards and say, actually, that wasn't quite the right answer, you'll never be able to take it back. It's there.
Well, you know what would happen, Nick, is if we ever did say something that was factually incorrect, and of course, Mr. Galopim de Carvalho never says anything incorrect, but if he ever did, it would be immediately in the chat from somebody who knew better.
Yeah.
I can confess once I did do webinars on amethyst. On the first webinar, I made like a mistake. because of the cause of color of amethyst, I mixed it up because it was natural or irradiation. And then I did a recording of the first one, and the mistake was there. And then I did another one, and the recording that is on YouTube is the one where I have everything okay according to Emmanuel Fritsch science. So there you go. You can, it's on record, but I mean you can take it out and do it again, and there you go.
Yeah. I know one time I did do just a silly mistake when I was speaking about somebody, and Vincent saw it it was on my own series, and Vincent told me later, hey, you said something really weird that didn't make any sense. And I actually went into the YouTube editor and I was like, okay, I have to take that sentence out. It was totally, completely wrong, historically inaccurate. And I was like, okay, that was a brain slip. But yeah, I think it happens. It happens. We're live. We're not used to doing this like live.
One thing with YouTube is you can, a webinar is recorded, but you can cut a part off. And most of the time, if your editing is good, nobody will see that one sentence was cut off.
That's how Vincent does his tricks now.
Can I just say something adding to what I was said? Every one of us here in the webinar, we write books, articles, we produce, I mean, I don't produce science, but Eloise, she does. I mean, and we write, we expose ourselves. And as we go along in our career from when we are 20, then we grow up and we become 35 as I am. We get, I mean, I know I look like 36, I know, but it's 35. But it's only people that don't do nothing, don't do mistakes. So I live really well when I really research what I try to communicate. But sometimes, like with the amethyst color, sometimes I do one goal. I kick the ball and the ball doesn't go into the English thing, the thing in football. Yeah. So and you have always some generous colleague. Like once Vincent, I was saying something on social media, and he immediately called me, Rui, what are you saying? And this kind of thing, this kind of being humble and being open, that it's normal that you will not be old enough to know everything. So and because we expose ourselves and we communicate and we educate, every once in a while we will say something which is not 100% correct, but I live really well with that.
And I learned in another webinar, I have a friend who's a communication coach, and I was joining her webinars. Kim A. Page is her name. I've just done a shout out for her. But in that webinar early on, I learned perfection is so 2019. And, you know, we were all just flying by the seat of our pants learning, and we were all live, as Rui was saying. And mistakes happened, you know, in many different ways, but it didn't matter. This is the year of TikTok versus Instagram, which is all scripted and perfect. TikTok is just chuck it out there and do it and have fun. And so I think we were riding that wave as well.
Yeah. Julia.
Yes, but just to add on to that, where they are recorded and where you can watch them back, there was also, even though it's not perfect, nothing's perfect, but you could get a lot of professional and personal growth from looking back at what you've done. And for me, it was some of the crutch words that I use, which at one point was the word actually, which I actually said about 2 or 3 times in actual every sentence. It was terrible. And but then you can hone that presentation skill so that you can just get better at, you know, sharing all this information. So not perfect, but you can certainly grow from it.
Yeah, good point, good point. Michelle, what were you going to say?
Yes, I just think like when for AIGS, we all invited the outside speakers, right? So when I was during the guest speakers, I feel like what I learned, not just the content, and also their attitudes. And like for Vincent, I feel like he has good passion for the field gemology, right? So he's very willing to share his like experiences in the mining areas. So I feel like it's like make him more close to the attendees. And also for like some professors like Professor Lutz, Professor Thomas Henschwa, I feel like they're like very precise and they want to be accurate. So it's like this kind of attitude what I get from them.
Yeah, yeah. It is kind of amazing to you almost like for us, especially, you know, for me, Michelle, maybe Julia, I don't know how you see yourself in the trade, but I've in this panel, I'm looking at the older generation that I look up to, and you know, thanks to the thing with Vincent, where I'm meeting all of these reputable gemologists and miners and everything else. It's like you sort of level up a little bit if you didn't feel like you were there already, you know, 7 months later or 6 months later, whatever, you kind of had to get up to everyone else's level if you weren't, and then maybe even further, because whatever. I know for me, one of the things that I learned, and this is a response to one of the questions in the Q&A, I learned about movie magic. So I think it was after maybe our first or second field gemology talks, and somebody in Bangkok messaged me and was like, I really want to come over and check out your library. And I was like, oh no, what do I say? Because it's like, I haven't revealed this before, but I will now. It's a green screen. It's just movie magic. And I told him, and I was like, sorry, it's not real. Rui's is real.
Rui's going to fill up his.
Yeah, so you got to go to Rui's house or go to Richard Hughes' house. He has the real deal. Vincent has the mini library back there, but mine is only a magic trick. So
we always had that as a joke that when I started joining Rui, because you know I've only got half a bookcase behind me, I'm only half as intelligent as Rui. He's got like loads.
Yeah, but that's true.
Yeah, I know it's true.
So let's.
Sorry, I have to take my pills because of my age.
Okay.
Carry on.
So let's shift a little bit and kind of look into what might come from this last period of webinar time. Where do we see this going in the future? And specifically at first talking about maybe the future of trade shows, the future of conferences. You know, we know that many of the shows this year and even next year have announced canceled. So what do you guys think? Are we going to be seeing more webinars, more of this kind of digital interaction with each other when we're not able to leave our country or leave our city or leave our house even? What do you guys think? Who's got one? Julia.
I think absolutely, because like with a lot of jobs, what lockdown and the experience of all these meetings online, what it's taught us is that you don't have to be in a room with someone to learn, to socialize, to share knowledge, and to gain something from it. Like I feel like even though we're in very different places, you know, I feel like I'm with you guys. And so I think moving forward, we're going to see it a lot more, especially until we can travel. So I've been invited to talk at a virtual conference in October for the IRV valuers. And, you know, I think it's going to be great. And if anything, more people might be able to attend.
Yeah. Eloise, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just to say about the same thing, and not only webinars, but teaching here at the School of Mines. We've been teaching online, and not only regular PowerPoint presentations, but also things that students had to produce on something. Like, for example, we had a class where the students had to draw some minerals and paint and actually design and create some design. And we did it on a Zoom meeting, and everything was prepared in advance. We gave them the images, sometimes some videos, and they can actually look at the minerals from the pictures. If they knew the museum before, they would have seen the minerals. And we had a teacher, a professional artist, who was actually teaching them how to draw the minerals. And we managed to do that online. So I think a lot of things, we realized that we can do much more things online than we previously thought.
Yeah. Ed, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the future of the trade shows, I mean, one of our webinars back in whenever it was, May or something, was on rethinking the future of the trade shows. And we were really lucky that we got the heads of Basel World, JCK, Vicenza Oro, and Hong Kong show, September and June Hong Kong shows. And that was a really fascinating webinar. And what the trade shows, of course, are going to be doing is this phygital events of half physical, half digital as we move into a post-COVID world. And it is going to be really interesting. And in fact, if I can just plug here, the Italian exhibition group who organize Vicenza Oro shows are having a gathering of the trade on the 12th to the 14th of September next month. It's called Voice, which means Vicenza Oro International Community Event, something like that. And Rui's invited to talk there, and I'm also there hosting a couple of webinars for CIBJO. And I think that's, they're being really brave there. And JCK have already done a completely virtual trade show back in August. And it was great, but of course, nobody could be in person. So what IEG are going to try and do is try and just get a mix. It's in the same hall that they were using before, but much reduced. And they're going to be live streaming out with some people in the audience, some people there, some panelists there live, and some at home. So I don't know how it's going to work. We're working on it now, but this is going to be the future, is mixing it up, or this phygital experience.
And I wonder once, supposing that the world eventually does go back to the way it was before, I wonder if this is going to change the expectation of that experience, where maybe now people are expecting that there's going to be a video crew at every trade show with seminars, and there's going to be this sort of virtual experience happening alongside of the in-person experience. I'm not sure if anyone's even supposed
but why not? I mean, that's what's happening in China right now. I mean, everybody's virtual streaming everything in China.
Yeah.
So why not in the rest of the world? I see Michelle's nodding her head. The way that the Chinese is using, not just for retail but for connecting, is way beyond what we're doing in Europe and the States, I think, right now.
Yeah. Vincent had his hand up for a while.
For me, I don't think that field gemology will become like a virtual, currently, if you cannot travel, you cannot go to the field, you cannot go to the mine, and you cannot collect samples. So that's a major problem. As long as nobody can travel, collecting sample on site at the mine is just dead.
Yeah.
So, but what I see is that there are things that we can do. In the future, I think that I will use a tool like Zoom in order to prepare expedition, to get people together in order to get the thing ready. And the other aspect is reading. You can have discussion about articles and about reading. And I think that this is a direction where I will personally go, and there are many articles or books that I like, and I can say that already for me the future of webinar will be discussing with the author of the article or the book that I like. And this is, because for me this is the main thing about preparing a field expedition or working on a research subject. It's about reaching what I call the cliff of the unknown. You collect all the information about the subject, and when you have done that, then you know exactly where is the limit between what you know and what you don't know. And this is the base about preparing every expedition, is to be able to do that. And I think that there is a potential, because I think that with this webinar, we should not forget to read. And I think this webinar could be a great way to promote some great article and some great book, and give people, a chance to meet maybe the author of the article. And that might motivate them to read the thing, because this is something that is kind of frustrating. Every time I write an article for a magazine, either Gemmology or Incolor, you never get any answer. You never get any connection with the people. Well, with a webinar, you put something out, and then you have the people in the chat, and you have this human connection that is coming. So I think that there is a really great potential about that.
Yeah, and I know one of the ones I really enjoyed that I saw was one of the Gem A ones that wasn't with Julia, but was with his name just popped out of my head, but yeah, and they basically just did a whole webinar just talking about the new issue of.
That was Brendan Laws. Sorry, yes, the Journal of Gemology. Yeah.
I just thought that was so cool. Like, okay, get the editor of the magazine. You're kind of like giving a little commercial for an hour about the magazine, but you could take it further, like Vincent was saying, and actually webinar, chat with all of the different major contributors of that issue, get everybody hyped about it, and then say, here's the link, go read it over the weekend. I think it's a great one. Rui.
And I think I will repeat myself, but this situation has, at least every one of us, we became more tech savvy. So now we know what is a microphone, cameras, and Zoom. So we are better prepared in terms of technology. And things that were like unobtainable, like how can you hear Brandon Lors, the editor of a peer-reviewed scientific magazine, sharing from his house the contents of a peer-reviewed magazine and the articles? That's absolutely amazing. And this lockdown has made it normal for a bigger audience to have contact with people that write the articles, that attend conferences, etc. So I think in terms of having the information available, I think there was like a kind of democratization of content, of information, that now there is much more information available, and it's much more available to everyone. Sometimes my evenings at home is watching the GIA channel or the Field Gemology channel, and I spend there, GIA is only 1 hour, the Field Gemology 3 hours, so more challenging to watch all the webinars. And brilliant, very good information by people that we normally don't meet. And one of the things that regarding trade shows and conferences, I'm not a market analyst, so I cannot predict. I can only give you my personal feeling, if that is worth anything. I go to those events, I go to learn, I go to see stones and books and magazines, but I go mostly to engage with my colleagues, engage with friends, have lunch, have dinner, have a drink, and be with people that are like me. That's why I love the Scottish Gemological Conference, because everybody there is there because of the people and because of the common passion. And that is what moved me. Of course, here I have the books, I have the magazines, I can share my passion and live it. But to be with somebody like me, having a drink or having lunch or dinner or dance, that's really special.
Yeah. Julia.
I absolutely agree. And I think where now more people are accessible on the webinars, and like you say, for social media as well, when trade shows and conferences do become, face-to-face again, people will have more confidence to connect with these people that they've seen. Like I know I did it last year in Tucson. I went up to all sorts of people that I'd learned and seen from social media and say, oh, I follow you, and they're all lovely. So it also gives that faith and allows more people to connect. So not just online, but when we're together again, it will also give, hopefully, the confidence for people to connect there as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so
I think Rui said it really well, that the democratization of content, but it's also democratization of people as well. I really hope people will feel really comfortable just walking up to any of the panelists or any of the people here or anybody that we interviewed to just say, listen, I really liked your webinar, and can we talk about it? And I think people will do that, and I hope they do.
Yeah, and pay us a few drinks.
Yeah. He's always after the commercial angle, that boy. Yeah. I don't know what it is.
And hopefully as well, because as Ed, you were saying, this has become so normal, hopefully it means that, as time goes on, more and more people feel comfortable to either start a webinar or to be a guest on someone's webinar. Maybe someone who previously said no to one of us, but maybe, at year one, it's like, okay, well, maybe I should do a webinar. I've got a bunch of people that I keep asking over and over again, please, I think you're so cool. No one knows what you know. Let's talk about it. And they're like,
you never invited me.
Yeah.
This was a point that Ed raised before about people who maybe not so well known giving, talks. And he mentioned, for example, Rose Tozer, who's in the Carlsbad GIA library. And I mean, she's worked there for years and years, and she gave a really good presentation not so long ago on Alexander E. Firstman's Russia's Treasure of Diamonds and Precious Stones. And Ed was saying, well, we haven't really heard from her before. So this sort of opportunity to do webinars actually can bring people that we may not know so much about to the fore. And this is also, a good chance, as Vincent was saying, that many of the people he's dealing with in the field, they're not used to coming and giving presentations, but it brings them into the foreground and people can learn about them and learn their experience and benefit from it. So I think this is also an important part.
Yeah.
And I was surprised they did very well. Like Rose others, they did very well because they are not in a room in front of 300 people. So some of the people who never spoke publicly, when I look at the webinar after, I say, well, it was just brilliant. It was just great. Because it's comfortable to speak in front of a computer. You don't see too many people, just Justin, me, or maybe sometime Rui. So it's okay.
And Carrie, you guys did the same with I remember your field gemology chat with Jean-Claude Michelou, which was just amazing, going back in how he got started in the industry, and even seeing a photo of him with hair, which, you know, that was worth the ticket price in itself.
That was one of the, I was thinking, what did you learn during this webinar? Oh, I saw Jean-Claude Michelou with hair. Yes, that was something I never dreamed about before, you know.
Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, and with the revolver too.
Yeah. Michelle, you had your hand up?
Yes, I would like to comment from maybe the education point. Actually, for the gemology education, maybe people, for us, for AIGS, we focus more on practice, right? So now it's a problem for the practice. But I think in the future, maybe we can combine it with webinars with practice together, because they can just stay at home and then they can maybe ask questions through the webinar or through the Zoom meeting, right? So they can just save a lot of time and they can just stay at home and then they can just come for the practice. So it's also a good way for the education, actually. And I would like to ask comment on Edward just mentioned about in China, right? For the short live video, it's very popular in China, and we have a lot of platforms for this kind of live videos. And I think because now a lot of people, they are out of job, so maybe in the future maybe will be more people they want to enter into the live videos. They want to be maybe the influencer. If they have some nice ideas, they can pass the gemology information to maybe some short live videos to pass to the people. If they want to enter into the industry, they can just check in the live videos so they can learn more and they can have more confidence in entering this industry.
Yeah. And Michelle, if I can add to that,
yes.
I mean, what's happening in China right now is incredible in terms of how people are using online to drive forward every aspect of life. And I remember, Rui, when we interviewed, or you interviewed, and I was sort of vaguely helping in the background, Damien Cody, and from Cody Opal. And he stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning to do it one time as well. And we were really chuffed because I don't know what the numbers were, Rui, but it was like really high, wasn't it? Like 800 or 7 or something.
It was the 1st of May, so national holiday, but everybody was at home, so it didn't matter. It was like 800 in one session, like 700 in the other. It was one of the best attended ones.
And we were really chuffed afterwards. And then the next week...
What does it mean, chuffed?
Oh, sorry, I'm using an idiom again, aren't I? Chuffed means I'm happy.
Oh.
Impressed with you. Okay. And then the next weekend, he was invited onto Guild Lab in Shenzhen and like had 8,000 or something. It's like 10 times as many. Same talk, but 8,000. It's like, wow, what's going on here?
This one you have to see, you have to maybe try to make it more like cozy and comfortable and more convenient for your attendees. Like they do it through the WeChat platform. There is some small program. So they collect it with a small program. So just so they can enter through the WeChat. You know, there are billions of people that are using WeChat in China. It's the main communication tool in China. So for the Chinese people, they can just click some link and can enter in directly. So that's why it's very, very convenient for people to do that.
So Justin, it kind of segues into talking about the future of webinars and what are we going to do? And we're all going to have to learn Mandarin, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, we're definitely going to have to take a model from China, because everything that we've seen here in Bangkok, from whether it's Chinese customers or Chinese students or whatever, it's technologically they're on another level in terms of selling online, communicating online with video. Everything that anytime I've seen something new, it just blows me away, and I'm just like, wow. I feel really lucky to be in Bangkok because I feel like we get to see it a little bit earlier than everybody else because we're so close. But they're definitely on a different scale and also on a different technological model than sort of the West has done. So yeah, I think it's really a good way to see where it's probably going to go. So
thank
Michelle,
you for all the Chinese.
So okay, Michelle was speaking a little bit about education, and since we have some other educational people in here, I'm curious to see from Nick and from Julia, if you can speak on behalf of GEMA. Has the webinar experience inspired the educational institutions, gemology wise, or are things going to be on hold, or what's the future looking like for distance, sort of a distance model for education? And whoever wants to go first, it's okay.
I think for GIA, we have the education was basically had to be rethought in some respects, because obviously the students could not come to the campus anymore. And we had to still keep the students, those who had already paid for the course, for example. We couldn't, in most cases, just return money to them and say, okay, please enroll again later. We had to try and keep up and stick to our word. So we had to turn to e-learning, and I think that has become more and more prominent now. There are our instructors around the world have been doing more and more e-learning courses to students globally, and I think this is going to be something more and more in future. And I'm sure that probably most of you, all of you know that, for example, during the lockdown, we offered the AJP course free to anybody within a certain period of time who wished to actually enroll, just so that they could do something during the lockdown. And we had, I have some figures here, basically 27,000 courses from between May and June that were given free to everybody. So that's to 11,000 unique students. And that would have turned into around about, if they were paying for it, around $6 million. So there were a lot of people who had the opportunity to learn free, and they did in the end benefit from it. So that was a good thing. And GIA also, we still continue with the plan to offer scholarships. So we can enroll until October this year. I think scholarships are still enrolling, and so we're still trying to support those people who may be financially, in difficulty at the moment and need that chance to try and learn something new. So I think the education is developing in a different direction now, and there's going to be a lot more e-learning in future. And when the students can come back to campus, then of course we will be ready for them as well. So yeah, I think all institutions sort of have to adapt.
Yeah.
And that sort of goes into a Charles Darwin type quote, I suppose. It's not the strongest nor the most intelligent of the species that survive. It is the ones that are the most adaptable to change. So you have to adapt to change.
Well said.
Mind you, if you're all three of them, that's even better, no? Strong, intelligent, and adaptable.
And Julia, from the GMA side, I know you've obviously given so much educational content. Is that going to turn into anything, or how is it?
Well, I'm not an employee of GMA. We're very strongly affiliated. So I'm an examiner for them, I'm an online tutor for them, and I'm a big fan. But I actually don't work with them directly, so I can't say exactly what they're doing. But I did speak with Elaine from marketing, and they've done online programs for a number of years now. They're continuing to do them. I believe the next sign up is in September if anyone's interested. But some of the benefits from the webinars, because we did open it up to everyone. So as well as teaching a lot to current members of the industry as well as of GMA, we also did enroll quite a few students from it, and had people became very interested in the association. So yes, and I know that they'll be continuing their online courses. We've recently, it was with me again, we recently released some videos onto YouTube to how to use the different pieces of gemmological equipment. So I hosted that for them as well. So that's also been released recently over the last month. So yeah, they are certainly developing, like we all are, to try and get a bit more online for those online students.
It is kind of cool to see, as we've been saying, this webinar experience becomes more and more normal, and it starts to give us like interesting new ideas that we may have never had before, or maybe that we never had the time to execute before. I know for us here in IGT in Thailand, my normal day job is a faceting instructor, and that obviously is a huge hurdle for something to try to do online, but it's been surprisingly successful. I've shifted our sort of intro one-day class into a 3-day Zoom experience, and I kind of didn't know if it was going to work. And we've done, I think, 4 classes now with 3 or 4 students each, where you can see, you know, we can see each other. Everyone's in a meeting style, and it's been surprisingly good. I mean, I can't go super deep because the Zoom resolution is not high enough to see everything, but I was impressed in myself to see how well the students reacted to working in that kind of a setting, especially because they have to have a fasting machine and they have to have a camera and, you know, all this tech stuff that is really required. But it's going to be really interesting if we have to keep doing this for the, you know, for the schools. How are we going to adapt? You know, like Michelle was saying, mix the experience between, you know, a Zoom experience and maybe something comes in the mail, you know, or, you know, I know with the GIA course, they're already getting stuff in the mail when they do online classes. So maybe if that's alongside an interactive Zoom session or something like that, I mean, there's so many ideas that we could obviously, you know, explore in our own way. Yeah, Julia.
I'm going to give a shout out to Kerry Gregory from Gemology Rocks. She's just started doing her practical gemology online courses, and the first one was on spectroscope, and she sends out to you like gemstones so that you can practice alongside the video lessons. So I think that's great for anyone who is learning spectroscope, which can be really tough to, you know, to do. But yeah, she's doing it really, really well.
That's so cool. Such a good idea. Eloise.
Can I just say something about what Julia was saying? I know, Julia, you have been doing such a wonderful job. I don't know what's going to happen for you in the future. I just hope that someone is going to jump on the opportunity from the GEM industry school, and they're going to hire you, because you are doing such a great job at the teaching, the education program. It's so well done. So congrats on that job, and I wish you all the best, sincerely.
Well, thank you so much, Eloise. That means so much coming from you, because I think you're amazing. So thank you. Thank you.
I'm also curious to see, you know, how this kind of normal experience or this normal webinar thing might give us new ideas. You know, like I'm imagining if I was Eloise, if I was in the museum, or if I worked in any museum right now, just imagine the kind of walkthrough webinars you can do. Like, okay, today we're going to look at this. Yeah, I mean, just so cool. I don't know if Eloise, you're already doing that, but it seems so cool that you, because you have access.
That's what I've been doing at the beginning with Instagram, the live on Instagram. That's how I began, and that's what gave us the idea as well to do that with the Gemology Talks live. And we visit museums around the world. Yesterday we were in Beirut, Lebanon, and especially after what happened in Beirut, you know, it was a lot of people were worried about the museum. We went to Vienna, we went to Boston, we went to Georgia, so we went to a bunch of places around the world. That's what we've been doing.
Yeah. Rui.
One of the things that many of us might start doing is, I mean, Julia, she was doing that brilliantly. She had a YouTube channel, and then maybe she can tell us how much time does it take to film everything, edit everything, let alone the research you need to make like only a 5 to 10 minute video. But most of us that we are here, we learn how to use the cameras. We know that the cell phones, they have very good cameras, and we know how to edit video. We had to learn how to do it. And maybe we will produce our own short videos, educational or whatever, and we will build up a YouTube channel as we did our Instagram with text and images, and now we can also add some video into it. But you have some, and making a 5 minute or 10 minute video, and maybe Julia, she can share with us what kind of equipment and time does she need to prepare all of that. And she started way before, because she was doing that before lockdown, and she was doing brilliantly. She's like a TV star for all of us. And maybe some of us, we will start doing, as she was doing, short videos, because short videos on YouTube, they have pretty much bigger engagement than very long videos anyway. But yeah, I think I'm considering doing some short videos on something with this lovely background.
You should. I think that would be great. To give some of my input for making videos, to start off, like I haven't done that many, but thank you for mentioning them. I want to do more, but they are time consuming. even though the final product is 5 minutes long, you know, you write your script, you then decide that's not the most effective script you can have, so you write it again, and getting familiar with, you know, the camera, the editing equipment, it takes time. But mine weren't perfect. They're still not perfect now. They're getting better. It's one of those things, you've got to do it and try. And the more you get familiar with it and the more au fait you become, the better and quicker you'll get as well. So yeah, but I just use I don't have a lot of money, so I use really, you know, just my phone, a small little microphone, lots of light is important, and then yeah, just do your best.
Yeah. I know we just launched, and this was well timed with COVID. We just launched a 4-hour video that's basically a cutting class in a video. And man, that we, like Rui was saying, you know, we didn't really know how to do it. We didn't really know how to edit videos. We learned how to do this. We launched it. And now that we've done it, I'm like, wow, the second one's going to be so much easier, because that one was really hard. It took really a long time. You know, we had to hire somebody. Now I feel like all of us have learned so many new skills. But let's talk a little bit about this, you know, in terms of for someone who has been inspired by this whole phenomenon and wants to start maybe their own webinar series, you know, as we're sort of kind of joking about this is the end of season 1. Maybe there's new faces in season 2, you know, whatever the world's season 2 is. What advice would you guys give for somebody who wants to start their own series or their own, Vincent?
Start. Just don't wait. Start and do something. You know, it's not very exactly as everybody. You know, when I look at the webinar we're doing at the beginning, the first one with Michelle and then with Rui, I think I was not that good. So I say, okay, now I can do better. You know, so I learned in the process, and you start from somewhere and then you go somewhere else and you try to improve every time. So everybody starts there and everybody go hopefully there. So you start where you are and you just go. You know, when you have an idea that you believe is good, just do it. Just do it. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, good point. Ed?
And if I can add, do it in your own personality. Do it in your own style. I want to credit a friend of mine called Christina Miller in the States, who quite early on, she started doing, for me, it was Friday evening. She called them the living room sessions, and she uses Zoom to do them. But Christina is a consultant, and she specializes in responsibly sourced jewelry, or some people call it ethical jewelry. And that's her community. And so the way she did it, and she wasn't paying for the webinar function in Zoom, because we do have to realize that there's a fee for Zoom, which is not a lot, but the webinar function, it can cost quite a lot of money, especially if you get a large audience. What she did is she just gathers people together each week. Well, it was each week, and just had a chat. And there was so much empathy and caring and sharing that came out of those sessions, but that's her personality. It's also her brand and how she hopefully finds a way to get more clients in the future. So do it. And, you know, what I do with CIBJO is much more corporate. It's panels and this and that. What Rui does and what we do is joking and entertaining, but hopefully also a bit educational. But, you know, do it in your own style is my advice.
Good advice. Rui?
And if I may say so, do research your topic. If you have a guest, do study what they published before, what they've spoken before, and do research the topic. And that implies something that Vincent is insisting always, which is reading. Read as much as you can, and the more you read, the better. Let me share you something with you. When I was preparing for Damien Cody's webinar on opals, I knew that Eloise Gaillou, she made her PhD on opals, and I asked her for a few advice and on nomenclature, and she just sent me a few. I think it was one article that you've published somewhere It was not very complicated. It was not very scientific. I mean, it was like not the graphs and all those complicated stuff. It was really well written. It was really easy to understand. And the more you have in good, don't go to Wikipedia to search your information. Go to academia, to ResearchGate, or if you don't have access, go to GIA website. All the gems and gemology, they are online. The Journal of Gemmology, at least if you are not a member, all the magazines 1 year past now, they are also available. Many other articles, they are also available. And try to do that research on peer-reviewed or in books, written books. And do research and do read. And if you know somebody that knows more than you, which happens a lot of times, if not all the time, if you try to send an email and say, can you explain me this? And people are really generous and they like to help you out if they can.
Good point. Really good point. Julia.
Just want to add on to that. Absolutely. Some of my real penny drop moments that I've had with understanding things often come from the timeline and the history of treatments developing and things, a time when sometimes I wasn't even born, let alone in the industry. So being able to talk to people that are, you know, much more experienced and knowledgeable than I am allows me to understand. And then that's what I'm able to share. So yes, I just second that comment, Rui, that you can talk to people and they will help you.
Rui.
I don't want to monopolize, but one of the things in public speaking, if you are really passionate about the topic, I understand that sometimes you are being scrutinized. You have an audience in front of you, so you have eyes looking at you, and you are under scrutiny. But just have a mindset, which is, I'm just sharing something that I'm passionate about. And don't worry about judgment, about having a PhD that is really knowledgeable on the room, because he was on your shoes before. And it's public speaking is much about having fun in sharing your passion. And if you embrace that with no fear of being judged, with great self-confidence, you will have fun and people will get first entertained. And if their brains goes into entertainment mode, they are much more open in listening to what you have to say. And maybe, just maybe, a couple of them or some of them, they will get inspired by the information that you are sharing, and then they will go and look it up and read some more information and get real education on the subject.
Yeah, I think Nick had his hand up, and then Vincent. You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, actually, I think Rui just covered what I was going to say. You've got to have a passion for whatever you're interested in. And I mean, everybody here, I think that you can see when they're talking, they have a passion for the subject that they're interested in, and it shows whenever they're talking. So if you want to go ahead with a webinar, then really it's finding something that really captures your interest, and that you know that you can talk about, and just put all the passion into it, and then it will just basically take care of itself, along with the reading, you know, backing up all that information.
Vincent.
Yeah, my advice to anybody who wants to do something online about any subject you like, you don't have to know everything. You just have to know the limit between what you know and what you don't know. When you know something that is solid, you can speak about, and then if you know that you don't know, you can ask the question. You know, but if you keep that line very straight, that I know, that I don't know, you will never be wrong. So you just have to know that limit, and don't be shy about that one. And in case of webinars and things like that, you will be amazed when you know exactly where is that limit and you play with it correctly. You will have a lot of support from people who know a bit more than you, and then you will learn and learn and learn more. And one great gemologist told me that the difference between a good and a bad gemologist is not that the good gemologist knows everything. No, the good gemologist knows where is the border between what he knows and what he don't know, and that's it.
Yeah,
very good.
And I kind of wanted to go back to what Julia was saying as well. You know, even outside of the scope of the webinars, you can always talk to people. You know, like if you see somebody who's an expert in something, whether you see them at a show or you just have their email or whatever, you know, especially in the world of gems and jewelry, where almost everybody is really, really nice and they really love what they're doing, you know, whatever their specific niche is. This is a community of people that really enjoy helping each other, and if whether it's to give a talk, to have them as a guest, or just, you know, meeting them and being a nerd at the show and saying, hey, I follow you on Instagram, but, you know, I really want to learn from you. Like, I think all of us have had that mentor person or that person that's helped us get in a little bit more into the trade than we were when we just got in, or we just finished school or whatever. And yeah, I think what Julia was saying is really important for especially the youngest generation of, you know, new gem and jewelry people. You know, you have to, if you don't connect with the people that are already there, you won't make it. That's just really the truth. This is a personnel industry, and if you don't interact with people that way, you just aren't in it, really. So so we're getting pretty far into our time, so I kind of want to push it towards the end, and we've said a lot, I think, and what my final question for you guys, what I'm curious about is, where are you guys personally going to go from here? You know, we've seen everybody's done their webinars. I think half of the people here, the series have ended. Some of them are still going, and I'm curious to see, is there new plans in the works, new webinar concepts, some totally other kind of thing happening, or what do you guys have planned now? What's new? What's next? I'm going to start with Eloise because she's in my first box.
It's easy for me. We're still ongoing with the webinars every Wednesday night. So it's every Wednesday. It's 7 p.m. French time, 6 p.m. In London time. So that means it's oh my God. I'm like, so it's 1 p.m. in Boston time, and it's 7 a.m. like Hawaiian time. That's the time at which Brian has to wake up to actually make the show happen. So yeah, so it's evening time for France. So I'm going until the end of the year at least.
Okay. Hey, one thing we didn't ever mention was, I bet all of us have mastered worldwide time zones now. You know what time it is all around the world now, or at least in some city somewhere. So, okay, Vincent, what about you? You have new plans? I know our Field Gemology Talk is formally ended today with this final goodbye.
Correct. This is the last of a Field Gemology Talk, and thanks to you for this good idea to bring everybody together. That's actually, I feel that's a kind of brilliant end for that series. It might continue with a new twist when traveling will start again, because I think maybe one day I will be able to do a Field Gemology Talk in the field, you know, with people in the field and doing something and speaking with my contact in the field about maybe the beginning or the end of the expedition. I don't know, but definitively I want to try to do that, because if Eloise was able to do a webinar on a train, maybe I can try to do a webinar in the field, you know, that would be interesting. But no, on my side, you know, the once a week was a little bit too much. I have other things to do. So once a week, I will stop doing that. And now I'm going with you on once a month. So that will be a little bit slower. And I still want, and it will be different, because as I said before, what the new format will be inviting people who have read articles or books that I like, that really matter and that help me to grow in knowledge and things like that. This kind of reference article and reference books that are, you know, maybe the top 20, you know, that are the basement for on which I was able to grow in knowledge. And some of these articles were really impressive. So I will start next month with one of my old friends, a former colleague from GIA, and we'll invite her to speak about a great article that she published recently in Gem and Gemmology. So it will be with Emily Dubinsky, and we'll speak about her work using, you know, spectroscopy and calculation in order to be able to have some quantitative data with spectroscopy and able to, when you see a spectra or when you see chemistry, to guess what is the color of the stone. And it's so powerful and so useful when you are really working on gemmology and you want to know if the data you are getting from one instrument are correct. So I was really impressed with the work she did. And it took her many years to make this article with Dr. John Emmett, and it's really something that I look forward. So I hope that it will motivate more people to read this article and to read that book.
Yeah, very cool. Ed, what's next for CIBJO and for your projects?
Yeah, firstly, I like the idea of Vince live streaming from the Ilakaka or something. That's going to be great. Looking forward to that. Well, we will be starting the second series of Jewelry Industry Voices, September 3rd. So this time next week, basically. And for us, what we're going to do going forward, I mean, after I did the first series voluntarily, we need to find some model that allows us to earn a bit of money so that we can pay some bills. Yeah. So we're still going to be doing it once a month, the Jewelry Industry Voices. But we're also, this is a bit of a advert, looking for sponsors. But I think also our plan is to do something that we're doing for the first time in Vicenza, where we'll be running Jewelry Industry Voices event at a trade show or at a conference, this voice event. And just a quick plug for that, we're doing a great panel discussion with 5 prominent members of the jewelry industry in Africa, because I want to start telling the story of Africa being a source of talent and creativity and entrepreneurship, instead of what some people think it's just where you get your gold and diamonds from. Yeah. And that's not true. So we're going to be doing that one, and also one on CSR. And we want to do more of that. For me, it's about bringing out my inner journalist and just exploring different topics every week with interesting industry leaders and having a good conversation. It takes a lot to think of the questions and to prep everything, but that's what we're going to be doing. And hopefully finding some way to earn a few shekels along the way doing it. So.
Okay. Michelle, what about you? What's the plan for AIGS?
Well, for AIGS Bangkok, now for the moment, we end the webinars already. And in the future, we might have if we have interesting topics, we might hold the webinar occasionally. And for our branch AIGS China, we have a laboratory in Shanghai, right? And I talked with them. They might have the interest to organize some Chinese webinars, so some Chinese platform. So I think they will come in soon. Yeah.
Very cool. Julia, what about you? What's next?
So I'm starting some webinars once a month. My first one will be the first Sunday of October, and then there'll be the first Sunday of each month. So please do join me for that. They will be chargeable because it's just with me through Jewelry Advisor, and I don't have employment otherwise, so they are chargeable, but it's a small fee. And actually, if you attend, I will give you a coupon, because I'm also working on online courses, starting with synthetic diamonds, to hopefully offer nice, clear, understandable information about an otherwise very complex subject online. And so the webinar is promoting that. So the webinar will be on diamond types and how diamond types are linked to testing for synthetic diamonds. So very cool. I should also shout out for Gemme. You mentioned how much you enjoyed Brendan Laws's Gemme Live. He'll be doing another one at the end of September. So to talk about the September Journal of Gemmology, so that will also be available through Gemme. So at the end of September.
So it seems like all of us have learned our lesson. Every week is very hard to keep up. Rui, what's next for you?
It's a full-time job.
The plans are to resume in mid-September. The format hasn't been decided yet. I plan to, because lockdown now is quite hard also in the Americas, so in Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, and the United States and Canada. So I think I will do a evening one on Monday with the same topic as the one that I will do on Tuesday normal time, which is 2 p.m. Lisbon, London time. So I will resume maybe only once a month, probably twice a month, but I'm back to work, so I'm quite so busy right now doing some other intensive stuff that I might not have time to be pretty much involved in so much webinaring. So that's pretty much like that.
Yeah. And Nick, what's GIA's future looking like? I think your webinars are still going on, right?
Yes, the webinars are still continuing every couple of weeks, and we've obviously, like everybody here, publicized them in advance, so hopefully everyone will know when they're going to take place. So, for example, tonight we have one in just over 1 hour and 45 minutes from now, so midnight Bangkok time. So that's coming up, and it's on pearls and the classification of cultured pearls in particular. So hopefully, you know, some people will be able to continue watching that. And we also plan maybe to have some specific corporate webinars that might take place as well, from what I know. So, you know, we've had some demand for people to ask for a specific subject and to their staff. So I would think this is probably something in future that will happen as well.
Very cool. I know for me, I was doing one series before Vincent and I started Field Gemology Talks, and now that we finished this one, I had a new concept where I really want to focus, you know, because in Field Gemology Talks, we really were focusing on Vincent's network of people in the field, miners, you know, academics that have gone and studied these kinds of things. And I was really thinking, as a gem cutter, I was like, I really want to highlight the world of cutting. So my new concept is I'm going to try and talk to a gem cutter from every single country where there are gem cutters, and have an interview and speak about the different specialties and regional differences, and, you know, all the really nerdy stuff that I love speaking to gem cutters about. So most of gem cutters are not very social, so I think that's going to be my main hurdle, is to get them to agree to come on here. But you know, I've started sending out some emails, so hopefully it's going to be good. So as always, we have to thank our guests, because you guys have been supporting us this whole time. You know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people and hundreds of hours of talks. So let me just put up, I wanted to put up one more thing, because someone did ask a question about what were some of the other...
Do you mind if I just point out that you didn't ask Michelle what the plans were for AIGS?
Yes, he did.
Oh, she did. She said they're going to do...
I'm so sorry.
Another senior moment, Edward.
I was having a senior moment. I do apologize.
Another one. Yeah.
Another one. Oh, yeah.
Okay, it's okay.
I'm so sorry.
I wanted to share this screen again because somebody had asked in the chat, what are some of the other people that are doing webinars? So take a screenshot. If you guys haven't checked out some of these other ones, I think most of them are up online or in people's Instagram stories or wherever they keep them. And yeah, go back. Of course, all of us have our stuff. I think everyone here has their stuff up on YouTube, and you can find them in our various YouTube channels. I'm gonna paste the links here in the chat. So if you guys want, if you don't know about these YouTube channels, the links are in the chat. Copy them before the talk is over and paste them in your notes and check them out later. But here's all of our contact info, and I want to thank all of you guys for you know, volunteering your time once again to just come and give us a piece of your mind and a piece of your experience. And thank you so much for all the work that you guys have done over these last weeks and months. And of course, thanks to all of our guests for continuously asking good questions, continuously showing up, and continuously, you know, sending us, you know, queries and trying to figure out what's on Rui's bottom shelf and everything. You know, it's been awesome. Eloise?
Can actually Rui show what is behind the scene on like 90 degrees and maybe play something for the closing?
Here.
Yes.
Oh, it's the guitar collection.
For that you have to pay. Or be your birthday.
Okay, well, any closing thoughts? I'm gonna put up, so yeah, this is the end of Webinar Culture Season 1. So this is some kind of strange moment in time, and Season 2 will start. As everyone was saying, everyone's got their new ideas, and some of them just continue on. But do you guys have any closing remarks before we end it for the night? And
just thank you all.
Yes, thank you for coming, and thank you for inviting me and having me on the show. It's been wonderful.
Thank you for the inspiration. Thank you for the inspiration, you know, for all of us, all of you guys, because you inspired us a lot, and all the people asking questions and interacting after later on social media and saying, oh, can you invite more geologists, or can you invite more so it was fun. I made new friends during that period. Funnily, I don't have met them yet, but some of them it's great. So thanks to everybody, and hope to see you soon. Maybe one day in the real life.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It was great to be with all of you, and really great to listen for everything you had to say. And thank you everyone for being there on the other side. Thanks.
And Rui, especially thanks for inspiring all of us to do this, because who knows what we would have been doing if nobody gave us the idea.
Can I make a confession?
Yes.
You're guilty.
As you know, I do a lot of public speaking, right? So for me, having 1,000 people in front of me, I just love it. The bigger the audience, the more pumped I am. But if the topic is myself, like you are thanking me for something, I'm like that 14-year-old guy meeting the girlfriend's mother. So I never know what to do with my hands. So it's not my place to get compliments. I really get very, very out of place, but that's my confession.
That's okay. That's okay.
Well, thank
anyone
you.
Else before we close it down?
Well,
thanks for the invitation.
Thank you, everybody. And yes, thank you, Justin, as well, for being a marvelous MC tonight and guiding us through all the questions, etc. And Rui as well. Obviously, everyone said thanks to you, but you started it all off, I think. So everyone appreciates you kicking the ball off.
And so, yeah.
Can I just say, just to add, because I mean, I echo everything that's been said, and I think somebody's already said it, but thanks to the audience. It was the audience that made us turn up every week and thinking of new ideas and getting new people. And honestly speaking, from my personal perspective, I don't know how my mental health would have gone through that lockdown if I didn't have that purpose every day to get up and either help Rui or to work with CIBJO to put out that content. So thank you everybody for turning up to all of our webinars. It's been such a great support for me personally, and I think for every other panelist here as well.
Yeah, and I want to extend that thanks out to all of the other webinar hosts. Of course, we couldn't have them all on here tonight because we would have never gotten to say anything with 40 people, but so many good webinars that have been going on. Check them out. I showed that screen. Go find them on YouTube, find them on Instagram. And, most of the people have put up their previous episodes, and everybody's got their own unique theme and their own unique, area of specialty. So thanks for all of those people for all the time. And sorry that we couldn't do more than 8 on the webinar because it would have just been too crazy. So, okay, guys. Well, see you in season 2, I guess, and we'll see what happens.
Bye everybody.
Bye
everybody.
It's that moment when we press the leave button and then feel really alone in our bed.
Oh God, yeah, it's gonna happen.
I've got the
in 2 minutes to ring.
Bye bye.
Bye bye everybody. Take care.
Bye bye.